Chapter 5, The Dangers of Contraception and Abortion. From a gynecological point of view. The birth control movement was initiated by neo-Malthusian sociologists, by individuals who were not physicians, and who were ignorant of the physiological processes and the pathological consequences involved in what they were proposing. They thought in terms of the rise and fall of population in relation to the food supply, not in terms of vaginal and uterine pathology. To solve their sociological problems, they uncritically accepted a device whose physiological effects they had not investigated. In a matter of such importance, are we to be guided by sociologists, and by physicians who have been convinced by sociologists, or by specialists and experts on the subject, by gynecologists? Gynecologists, above all others, have had an opportunity to study the effects of birth control measures upon the genital organs, especially those of the woman, and, therefore, they have a right to pass judgment upon them. There is almost universal agreement among gynecologists that contraception, as well as other methods of preventing conception, is decidedly injurious. We shall now review the opinions of 20 of the world's leading gynecologists on the subject of birth control. Their conclusions are based upon the observation of cases in which various methods have been used, principally coitus interruptus and contraception, both of which practices lead to similar pathological after effects. Dr. Giles, one of the foremost British gynecologists, says, when birth control is exercised from the outset of married life, and before any pregnancies have taken place, it seems certain that the practice favors the development of fibroid tumors of the womb. Beard, in his work on sexual neurasthenia, maintains that the sudden interruption of coitus, and also the use of condoms and similar appliances, is not only far more deleterious than unduly frequent normal intercourse, but he points out that, inasmuch as, owing to the unnatural mode of sexual intercourse, the possibility of fertilization is almost completely prevented, sexual intercourse is apt, in such cases, to be indulged in far more frequently, and often to gross excess. More particularly in such circumstances are evil effects on the nervous system likely to ensue, since we have a combination of excessively prolonged and frequent sexual intercourse. Dr. Kish, a German gynecologist, in his book, The Sexual Life of Woman, says, the most trustworthy method for the prevention of pregnancy is that of Malthus, permanent sexual continence. This recommendation, to which Tolstoy in the Kreutzer Sonata gives his adhesion, has recently found an advocate in a modified form in the distinguished gynecologist Hegar. The use of various measures for the prevention of conception is considered by Hegar to be harmful, at any rate in the case of young women. This practice gives rise to anemic conditions, and to nervous weakness and irritability. Ribbing, another gynecologist, writes, although the sexual impulse is the product of a powerful developmental force, still the temporary, and sometimes even the permanent control of this impulse is a moral civilizing force of enormous importance. The writer is opposed to the use of artificial preventive measures, he considers them untrustworthy and dangerous to health. Noteworthy, also, are the psychical considerations adduced by ribbing against the use of preventive measures. The majority of well-bred women feel wounded if they believe themselves to be regarded as a means of enjoyment, not as individuals, as persons with inalienable rights. For the man also there is danger, for it is easy for him to acquire a dislike to the wife who, even though on his own initiative, occupies herself with the techniques of the sexual life in a manner which he feels instinctively to be opposed to the chastity and pure-mindedness demanded by every man from his wife. Ribbing, therefore, advises a certain measure of sexual abstinence in married life. Eulenberg regards the modern diffusion and the continuous increase in the use of preventive measures as signs of decadence. Eulenberg also declares that coitus interruptus is already a frequent cause of sexual neurasthenia in women, and that its evil influence in this respect is becoming more and more frequently manifest. The evil effects of both contraception and coitus interruptus are entirely due to the loss of seminal fluid by the parties concerned, either during or after the act, not to any assumed lack of gratification, or a failure to experience an orgasm, on the part of the female, which is proven by the fact that these practices are even more harmful to the man than they are to the woman. Babel, another leading gynecologist, is a declared opponent of Malthusianism. Von Hoslin believes it to be indisputable that preventive methods of sexual intercourse may cause nervous troubles, and more particularly neurasthenic disorders, manifesting themselves chiefly in the sphere of the reproductive organs. Mantegazza believes that organic diseases of the spinal cord may actually result from congressus interruptus. Hurst considers that even when marital intercourse is carefully regulated in respect of frequency, congressus interruptus may lead to neurasthenic manifestations. Heart trouble may result from birth control practices. Under the title, Cardiac Troubles Due to Sexual Intercourse, Dr. Kish writes, among the troubles from which women at times suffer as a result of sexual intercourse, certain cardiac disorders are especially worthy of attention. Every act of sexual intercourse in a young and sensitive woman exercises an exciting influence on the nervous mechanism controlling the cardiac movements, and this influence is more clearly manifested in a degree directly proportional to the intensity of the sexual orgasm. Similar results ensue when there is a summation of stimuli owing to excessive sexual intercourse, or contrariwise, when the act of intercourse is broken off just before its physiological climax. According to Dr. Kish, the following diseases of the female reproductive organs result from preventive methods of sexual intercourse: chronic metritis, relaxation, retroflexion and anteflexion of the uterus, catarrhal disease of the genital mucous membranes, erosions, and follicular ulceration of the portio vaginalis, oophoritis, and perimetritis. Krafft-Tebing believes that coitus interruptus, and unphysiological modes of sexual intercourse in general, are extremely potent causes of sexual neurasthenia, as potent as masturbation, contraception and other forms of birth control are really double masturbation. They lead to more serious consequences than solitary masturbation for the following reasons. 1. They are not inhibited by a sense of shame, but are encouraged and even recommended by authorities. 2. There is a greater loss of seminal fluid because the act is more excessively prolonged. One's sexual organs are not only misused for the gratification of one's perverse desires, but also those of another. The practice of birth control results in the following diseases of the female reproductive organs: elongation of the cervix uteri, according to Goodell, ulceration of the cervix, infarction of the uterus and hysterical paroxysms, according to Mensinga, chronic hyperemia of the uterus, according to Grafe, perimetritis, according to Eli Schurz, chronic metritis, according to Asher and Valenta, uterine carcinoma, according to Neugebauer and Pidgelat, and premature menopause and atrophy of the uterus, according to Lyer. The following response was made to a questionnaire on the subject of birth control sent to a representative body of physicians. Are contraceptive methods used by the majority of educated married women? The answer to this question was yes, invariably. Are contraceptive methods capable of causing serious injury to the female genitive tract? The answer to this question was 75% affirmative and 25% negative.